Well, Easy Money is about the underworld of Stockholm. It's about the regular crimes of Sweden, not so much murder and killing, more about the cocaine business, domestic violence, prostitution violence, and the things that I, as a criminal defense lawyer, come across in my job every day. And it's about three men with all different backgrounds. One of them is in prison, and he breaks out from prison and he tries to regain his position as a drug dealer. The second main character is a Serbian mafia hitman, and he's on a mission from the Serbian mafia boss, but at the same time he tries to take care about his daughter. The third character is a Swedish class climber who wants to come close to and climb in the ladder of classes in Stockholm, but he doesn't really have the finances, resources to do that, so instead he's pushing cocaine. And these different characters' lives and the plot crosses and connects, and it spans over a couple of years, and you can follow the development really in the Stockholm underworld, but also these characters. Working at the court in one of the suburbs of Stockholm really opened up doors into a world that I hadn't come close to in my real life. I only read about it in the headlines of the newspapers. For me it was fascinating, also very scary, but mostly I got very excited about that no one had really tried to depict in Scandinavian literature before the streets, the darker parts of the streets of Stockholm. So I started to write. So I bought a little notepad and I started to collect in that notepad stories and anecdotes and details about human beings that I came across in the court. And at the same time, as this was happening, I was reading a lot of American crime fiction, such as Dennis Lehane and James Ellroy and Edward Bunker, and in my head it started to connect with the stories I saw in the court with the stories I read fictionally. So I sat down at home and I tried to write my own story, connecting to the real stories of the streets of Stockholm. For me, it's been a grand project. It's been taking place over 7 years, this project. From I started writing my first book until I published my third book in the Scandinavian countries just very recently. So I've been living with these characters and the stories for 3 years. So it's been a great challenge, but also something very safe and secure to always return to in my head. And now when this trilogy is finished in the Scandinavian countries, I feel also great sadness, because I leave these characters behind now. I'm very bad with routines, actually. So my writing routine, since I have a regular job, is to write in the spare time. And my first book took around 2 years to write, but my last book took much longer, and the reason is that now I have family, I have children also. So most of the time I do write at night, but I also sometimes take a day off from court practice and just write. So my source of inspiration are mostly from overseas, like James Ellroy and Dennis Lehane and Raymond Chandler and Elmore Leonard and Edward Bunker. Quite violent, quite complex plots, but also not so much maybe focus on the plot all the time, but also a lot of focus on the characters and the places where the story takes place. It was very scary when they wanted to make a movie out of Easy Money, but also I felt very curious what they were going to come up with. And I was quite involved, not in the writing of the manuscript and not in the casting or the editing or the shooting of the movie, but I was involved. I was looking at the various manuscripts they came up with, and I gave my opinion, and I had meetings and so forth. At the end, I think the movie that came out was very different from the book, but very authentic. They kept, I think, the most important thing, they kept the feeling of the real. So the movie in Sweden was extremely well received by people because I think they felt this could be real.
Lyssna på mig nu. Du är en dubbelspelare och jag förstår dig.
Det känns som att du upplever allt det här för första gången.
Är det bra eller är det dåligt?
Men det skulle bara lägga ner det där.
Vad menar du?
Jag menar bara att lika barn leka bäst.
Vem är det som har garderoberna? Kan du hämta han?
Du blir inte intresserad.
Spelar ingen roll. Hämta han som har garderoberna, säger. Du jobbar för Abdul Karim. Ni har gått ihop med Jorge för att ta in ett stort parti varor. Det här är en ny värld för dig, eller hur? Det är inte många som vet att den finns. Men det finns också en baksida. Och den är skoningslös, Give. Du ska inte tro att du känner dem du jobbar med. Jag har varit med länge. Och det som händer nu är att folk blir giriga och nervösa och bakom ryggen på varandra. I den här branschen tänker alla på sig själv och cashen i första hand. Det borde du också göra den här gången. Ha?